Alright guys, so it seems to be, or have been a long time since I brought to you some full workouts. So getting back into that, and I am going to be starting with a delt session. To preface, this session was actually delts and triceps, but I didn't have as many videos for the tricep portion. I actually missed one exercise and then only had a few sets of the other one. So I didn't even want to include it in this video. I just wanted to take the delt portion and really focus and analyze that in terms of my programming and show you guys what I did for delts in this particular workout. So this is from Tuesday night, November 20th, and a late night workout. And very recently with my training, it's been a little bit off in terms of my recovery and seeing where I could get my training stimulus to match my recoverability. And it seems like my training stimulus has exceeded that a little bit, because over the months and months of myself training and working to improve my intensity and how far I could take each set, it seems that I've actually reached that point where I'm pretty happy where my intensity is, getting maybe a force rep or two per set on each working set that I perform. And the problem with that is getting that and getting that consistently, but now I have to reassess my overall training volume with that higher intensity, and in order to make sure that I can still recover from my sessions. So what I'm doing is reassessing my volume. Normally you guys would see me perform maybe 3 working sets, reverse pyramid style, with my heaviest set first, and then 2 back off sets, slightly increasing the reps, decreasing the weight each time. So now I think I'm at a place with my training that I may be able to get away with 2, and I think that may be the better option for me, especially when having a training partner. I did have a training partner in this section, so also in this session, so I'll also include that, because that can have a little bit of variability within your training and how many sets you actually need to do, because sometimes if you don't have that training partner to grind through force reps on every exercise of every set in that entire session, your volume could and will probably need to be a little bit higher if you are training alone. So for the delts, my delt workouts have been pretty standard recently, not even switching up the order of the delt heads that I perform the session with, starting with your typical front delt to start, moving on to side delt and rear delt to finish off. And with that, I just feel like it works the best for me, because I'm in a place where I've been building up a few of my pressing motions for front delts, and they're in a good spot. My execution is on point with those, and my load is gradually increasing. No problems with joint wear and tear or anything like that, so I'll include those first. And then moving on to, usually, depending on if it's a delt focus session, or if the delt head or the delt is thrown in at the end of another muscle group, I may not include it, but in this one I did a front raise variation, another anterior delt movement. Then from there, moving on to side delts, where I perform a cable lateral, lying, usually on an incline or flat. Those have been pretty much 95% of my training for side delts over the past 8 to 12 months, and for a good reason that I will get into more when I show the execution clips. And then moving into rear delts, I have a superset here for rear delts, starting with a row variation to get some load in the 6 to 10 rep range, and then burning out with a dumbbell rear delt lateral, and a band rear delt lateral as well, keeping that in the little bit of higher rep ranges as opposed to the rear delt row. So my first exercise was a plate loaded shoulder press, and this is the first time that I was able to work out a core on Kaiser Ave in Scranton for a while. And they had a couple new machines. They had this plate loaded shoulder press, which I really like. It was, I believe it was a Life Fitness leverage or lever edge piece, but it was a very good profile. So the machine was set up in a way that as soon as you re-racked or unracked the weight, that lever would come a little bit closer to you, so making for a nice drop off in tension as you get to the top where you're weaker. So that as soon as I saw that machine, I said definitely going to start here, load this pretty heavy. My top set of 6 reps, backed off to 8, then backed off to 10, did 3 working sets there. After that, I moved on to a lying incline cable front raise with a rope, so about 20 to 30 degree incline, laying face up using a rope, and keeping that one in the 8 to 10 rep range. Stay a little higher with your front raise variations, especially after some heavy presses. I've seen that works the best for me. Moving on to lying incline cable laterals. Again, slight incline with this one. I'd probably say no more than 20 degrees. Crossing the cables in front of me, using the ankle cuffs on my wrists, and also holding on to fat grips, so that allows me to actually be able to squeeze onto something in my hand, creating a little bit more stability through the wrist and elbow, instead of just having the cuff with the load pulling on my wrist and an empty hand. So a little bit of compromise there. I actually did 4 sets there, so I do need a little bit more side delt volume because that is a weak point for me. And the side delt tends to respond to a very good variety of rep ranges. I could dip as low as 6 to 8, and I could go as high as 12 to 15 plus, and still get a very good mind-muscle connection and good output with my side delts. So 6, 8, 10, and 12 were the rep ranges for my 4 sets there. As for the rear delt superset, it was a rear delt row on a lat pull-down machine using the Prime Fitness short bar and just a pair of ordinary gym handles. Didn't use the rotate handles, did not bring them with me. And very similar to a face pull variation. The advantage of using the short bar is that you're able to also create some intention outward. As you're pulling back, you could also pull out, essentially like a band pull-apart motion, but this will allow you to handle a substantial amount of load. And then the second half of the superset, as I mentioned earlier, was the lying dumbbell and band rear delt fly, laying face down on an incline bench about 30-35 degrees, starting with light dumbbells about 8 to 10 reps. Once you fail with that, get your hands inside a light band, put your hands out flush against the band, and then just work on some explosive contractions there. I was getting about 8 reps on the band after 8 to 10 on the dumbbell. So as you can see, the reps will increase with about 30 reps total coming from that superset. So a very good superset for rear delts there. Performed 3 sets there. I didn't reverse pyramid at all. I just kept my rep ranges in that 6 to 10 range for the row, the 8 to 10 rep range for the dumbbell, and the band lateral. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the execution videos and give you guys some cues as to what I was thinking about during this delt session.
So first exercise, starting with front delts, using the plate-loaded shoulder press, starting my delt workout with the pressing motion, and I've been doing this most of the time with my delt training recently because I have reached a place, as you can see, where my execution is on point. And this is one of the exercises that I'm actually feeling most comfortable performing. And shoulder press, I'm definitely not going to complain about that, with delts being the weak point for me. So with my execution being on point, as well as my load gradually increasing, front delt training has been in a good place for me recently. So as you can see here, this is my top set shown. I have 3 plates and a 25 on this one for about 6. And then moving along on into my back off sets. Second set coming here of about 8 reps. Cues I'm thinking about with this one, you'll see my feet locked in 90 degrees to the floor, driving my hips down and back into the seat, making sure my back is against the seat as well, not increasing my thoracic extension too much to allow some of that upper pec fiber to get in there, and then just keeping my head dead on. And then if you have a training partner to help you grind out those last few reps, make sure that execution stays on point when you're pushing and trying to get those final few failure reps. Definitely take advantage of that. It's always good to have another set of eyes on you when you're getting heavy and getting to that point of fatigue. Last set shown here. I believe I got 11 reps on this set, aiming for 10. So I'll take it, and with shoulders, I will never be hesitant to dip into a little bit of a higher rep range. I've seen that shoulders do respond to a little bit more reps. Still want to get that heavy work in to start in that 6 to 8 rep range, and then backing off here for 10 plus. And then after this is the only 3 sets I perform for the plate-loaded shoulder press. Moving along into a lying incline cable front raise. As I mentioned earlier in the description, I don't always include these, but I do when I'm hitting delts on their own. So doing 3 sets of heavy pressing, followed by 3 sets of front raises, working in the 8 to 10 rep range here. My first 2 sets actually stayed with the same weight. I believe I had got 9 and 8. Then I knew I needed to drop down a little bit, and then wanted to do a drop set on my final set, So dropped the weight 10 pounds, got myself up to 10 reps. And then from there, I performed a double drop set. Cues with this one, same thing. Keep your feet locked down into the floor, making sure you're stable against the bench, creating a very stable environment for that front delt to contract, not allowing yourself to lift off that bench in any way. With the rope, I'm looking to really keep it wide, near shoulder width. So we used 2 long ropes, as you can see here at the bottom. I have the ropes pulled all the way out, so that will allow a little bit of extra distance in between the ropes to allow that angle of shoulder flexion to be met with larger torso and larger clavicle, if that is a word, individuals such as myself. If not, you can get away with using a single rope. Just see how that fits for you and if you need to make that adjustment. And as you get to the top, you'll feel that you will have a slight drop off in tension. Also, if you get above shoulder flexion all the way up where your arm is parallel to the floor, you may feel a significant drop off, so you may not even need to go into that range, as your traps will likely take over. Moving on to side delts. Lying slight incline, I believe that's a 20-degree incline cable lateral. Using fat grips in my hand to allow myself to create some stability at the wrist and at the elbow while using the ankle cuffs. So that gives me the best of both worlds, allowing myself to be able to think pulling more so with my elbow rather than my hand to ensure maximum side delt activation, and then using the fat grips in my hand to alleviate any of that instability at those joints. Did 4 sets here, a little bit more side delt volume as opposed to, well, looking back, front delt 6 total sets, then 4 for sides, 3 with a superset for rear. So this is the only exercise for side delts, and my side delt variety has not been that much recently, to be honest. Usually just sticking with variations of this motion, whether it be flat, whether it be slight incline like this, or even seated upright in a military bench like a crucifix lateral, I will call those, and then burning out with some cable laterals at the length and range. That one is on the exercise library if you want to check that out. I believe I do have all 3 of these variations on the library as well. Just subtle differences in between them. The crucifix lateral will allow you to get a little bit shorter in the side delt because you will not run into your GH joint. This one you will, but the profile with this one is fantastic. The bracing is there, and it allows for great output, and then helps you to align as well when you get to the top. Align those cables with your upper arm as you're pulling. So 4 sets here, worked in the 6 range, the 8 range, the 10 range, and the 12 range for my sets respectively. As I mentioned earlier, side delts respond to a wide variety of rep ranges, and as long as my execution stays on point, I'm not jerking the weight or anything like that, and I'm still able to create some output within my sets, I'm going to run until the wheels fall off, especially with side delts. Would I do that for something, or some of my stronger body parts like my quads? Probably not. It'd be more of a stick to the plan approach. But with side delts, an extra set will not kill me, especially because they're such a small muscle group overall, and the systemic fatigue coming from an extra set of lateral raises isn't really going to put the nail in your coffin. And still going here with the side laterals. As I mentioned with the cues, when you set up, make sure that when you get to the top of the rep, you'll see the cable line up with my upper arm. This happens a lot with cross pushdowns as well, to make sure that it aligns rather than just arbitrarily thinking if you cross it, it must be aligned well. Double check that one. Onto rear delts, superset. Lat pull down, rear delt row here, kind of like a face pull, kind of like a band pull apart. Why? Because of the Prime Fitness short bar allowing me to get that outward rotation, as well as being able to pull toward my chin in a face pull motion. Only disadvantage is that the bar and the handles wouldn't allow me to re-rep every rep, so I have to be on my knees here and kneeling, and that takes away a little bit of bracing, but I can live with that. Working in the 6 to 10 rep range with the rows. and then supersetting with lying dumbbell and band rear delt flies on a 35-degree incline here, hanging my chest over, and then just allowing myself to keep the dumbbells moving. I didn't want to have any pauses in the extremes here. Working 8 to 10 reps with the dumbbells. Immediately upon failure with the dumbbells, grabbing the band, putting my hands into the outside of the band, and then burning out as well, thinking about touching the opposing walls with the outside of my hands to ensure maximum rear delt activation. Again, 8 to 10 reps there. And that is it for delts. So front delts, side delts, and rear delts all covered within this one workout.